We all know about the horrors of World War II, but behind the battlefields and speeches, behind the tanks and soldiers, there were projects so disturbing, so cruel, that many people still cannot believe they truly happened. These were not just strategies of war, they were experiments, weapons and ideas that crossed every boundary of humanity. Today, we are diving into the darkest Nazi projects you don't want to know. But by the end, you will. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to discover more untold stories from history. Now, let's begin. The story starts in a laboratory in camps of Nazi Germany. While the world was watching the battles in France, Poland, and Russia, something even more sinister was unfolding. The Nazis believed they could reshape the future of mankind. They didn't just want power over nations. They wanted power over life itself. One of the darkest projects was the human experiments conducted in concentration camps. Men like Josef Mengele, often called the Angel of Death, saw people not as human beings, but as tools. Prisoners at Auschwitz were subjected to freezing experiments, where they were left in icy water to test how long soldiers could survive. Others were infected with diseases like typhus and tuberculosis to test vaccines. Mengele became infamous for his obsession with twins. He performed surgeries without anesthesia, injected chemicals into eyes to try and change their color, and carry out grotesque operations just to see what would happen. For the victims, this was hell on earth. This Holocaust survivor talks about her and her twin sister's experiences with Josef Mengele. Listen closely.
Every part of my body, compare it to my twin sister, and then compare it to chart. On alternate days, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, they would take us to a blood lab. They would tie both of my arms to restrict the blood flow, take a lot of blood from my left arm, and give me a minimum of 5 injections in the right arm. The content of those injections we didn't know then, nor do we know today. After one of those injections, I became very ill with a very high fever. My legs and arms were swollen and very painful. I was trembling as the August sun was burning my skin, and I had huge red spots covering my body. The next visit to the blood lab, they didn't tie my arms. Instead of that, measure my fever. And I was immediately taken to the hospital. The hospital was another barrack, but it was filled with people who looked to me more dead than alive. Next morning, Mengele came in with 4 other doctors, never ever examined me. He looked at my fever chart, and then he declared, "Too bad. She's so young. She has only 2 weeks to live."
After hearing this story, it's no wonder prisoners started calling Mengele the Angel of Death. He decided over life as he was God, starting with the selection process at arriving trains in the concentration camp. Mengele selected the prisoners that were capable of work and doomed the sick and weak to the gas chambers. Twins were automatically picked out of the line for Mengele to perform his experiments on. No exceptions. When the experiments were done, or if the victims died during the procedures, they were disposed of like garbage, their bodies often cremated or buried in mass graves. But this was only one part of the nightmare. Another project was the Lebensborn program. At first glance, it looked innocent. It was presented as a way to support young mothers and children, but its true purpose was chilling. The Nazis wanted to breed what they called the perfect Aryan race. Women with desirable traits were encouraged, sometimes forced, to have children with SS officers. In occupied countries, thousands of children were kidnapped from their families if they looked Aryan enough. They were taken away, renamed, and raised as Germans. Imagine being a parent in Poland or Norway, and one day your child disappears, only to grow up believing they had always been German. And then there were the weapons projects. The Nazis dreamed of weapons that could terrify the world. They built the V-1 and V-2 rockets, the first long-range guided missiles in history. These rockets rained down on London, killing thousands. But even darker were the projects that remained incomplete. The so-called America bomber was designed to fly across the Atlantic and strike the United States. Even more disturbing, there were plans to develop nuclear weapons and dirty bombs. If they had succeeded, history could have ended very differently. One of the least known projects was the attempt to harness the supernatural. Heinrich Himmler, one of Hitler's closest men, believed deeply in the occult. He founded the Ahnenerbe, a research group that combined archaeology, pseudoscience, and myth. They searched for ancient relics, like the Holy Grail, believing they could grant mystical power to the Nazis. Expeditions were sent to Tibet, the Middle East, and even Antarctica. While these stories may sound like the plot of a movie, they were deadly serious to Himmler and his men. Another project, equally horrifying, was called Operation T4. It was a secret euthanasia program aimed at eliminating people with disabilities, both mental and physical. Doctors and nurses, who were meant to heal, became executioners. Victims were taken to facilities disguised as hospitals and killed with gas or lethal injections. The program was designed to create what the Nazis saw as a pure population, free of those they deemed unworthy. But it was also a testing ground. The methods used in T4 became the foundation for the mass extermination that would follow in the Holocaust. These were not isolated events. They were part of a bigger vision. The Nazis imagined entire cities designed for conquest, highways that spanned continents, and colonies on foreign soil where only the chosen could live. Behind the dream of a 1,000-year Reich was a machinery of nightmares. This story is not easy to listen to, but it is necessary, because the only way to make sure history does not repeat itself is to shine a light on the darkest corners of the past. If you found this documentary eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into the hidden sides of history. And don't go anywhere. On your screen right now, you see the true story of the simple German carpenter that almost killed Adolf Hitler, all by himself. Click it, and I'll see you there.